jet lagged?
I wouldn't go that far. I don't feel too bad, I have to say. I do actually feel pretty good. I was up this morning about 5, um, and I was in bed by 11. So I've had a pretty decent 6 hours.
Do you sleep on the plane or no?
Do you know, I find it really difficult. Do you know the issue for me on the plane is every time I go to sleep and my head falls forward, I wake up because it's a chair. You know.
Yep.
Um, I quite like Emirates for a lot of things, but I suppose that's just that's just economy, isn't it? Economy, you can't really ever lay back properly.
Yeah, it's a bit difficult. The pointy end's a
Yeah,
little bit better, but bloody
Either
expensive.
that. Which one is, sorry?
The pointy end of the plane is a little bit better, but
Oh, the pointy end. Yeah. That's the problem. Is the price of it? I yeah. Even when I lean back, when my head falls to the side, it wakes me up. So there's no real way of, I don't find anyway, there's any real way of getting a sustained sleep. I think I tend to fall asleep.
have you heard of drugs?
Only for recreation. Yeah, I could probably do
They
with
actually
that.
work, they tell me, or just work harder before you jump on the plane. It simply
Well,
does.
that is an option, isn't it? It's just have some sort of workout somewhere.
Man, when I came back from Bali, couldn't believe it this time. I was asleep before the seatbelt sign came off,
Oh, really? Oh,
and
let's see. That's
I
good.
woke up.
Yeah.
I woke up when the announcement came on. We are now descending into Sydney Airport. Oh,
Yeah, that is
how good
good.
is that?
That's the way you want it, isn't it?
Yeah, just had time to fill in my immigration form and perfect.
And then you're off.
Yeah, awesome.
Right,
But
hold on.
that doesn't
I've
happen often, I can assure you. That's just a very hard week working in Bali.
Now we've got
All right.
about 2 minutes before we start. I'm actually in a trade,
Righto.
which we can talk about a little bit. There's loads to
Well, if
talk about actually.
can the mob get in, or should we have a look
Yes.
at breakout trade? If they can get in, then let's go to you.
Oh no, they can't get in mine. No.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, let's look at the breakout trade. Give me.
today on the pound and
Great.
breakout trade.
Great.
All right. Well, choice again, guys. If you're trading the last bar, then there's your range there, the bar. If you're trading the last 3 bars before the open, then here's your range here. So we'll go 10 pips above this one for our entry. 131.45.1 is the high. So we'll go 131.55 will be our entry. Let's put that there. There it is. Very, very close to that level. And very close here. Let's assume that that is going to be the low, 131.127. Let's call it 131.12. So we'll go to 131.05. Sorry, 07, not 05. There's 05. Maybe it wants me to go to 05 for some reason. Freudian slip. All right, let's make those accurate. 07 it is, and up the top side. Should I say 48? I think I did. If I, sorry, 54 or 55. What's the high? Can't see it. Let's call it 131.54, shall we? That's the entry. All right, so there's your entries. The long 131.54, the short 131.07 with about 50 seconds to go. There, we're very close to the short entry, aren't we? So that may well be the way we go. We'll see. Anyway, we'll come back and have a look at this and have a look at yesterday's scenario. Pretty tough here, got to say, if you have a look at the last 3 days. Trading a breakout. Yeah, hasn't quite done that, has it? But we'll have a look and see what the results would have been using my trail, the 2 15-minute bars system, and see if we would have been winners or losers. Righto, Ash, what's your trade, mate? Okay, either I can't be heard or I can't hear Ash. One or the other. Hello, LT. interesting. I don't know who can be heard here and who can't, but I see a blue circle of death on my chart. So maybe that's a hint. Maybe it's me. Ash, can you hear me? Anyone in the room, if they could just type in the chat box if they can hear me or otherwise, that would be good. Then we'll know at least which end of this scenario is good or bad. I've got a funny feeling it's me. Oh, okay. Thanks, Zayden. Cheers. Okay, so Ash is having an issue. All right. I'm sure he'll attempt to rectify that. I can't do that for him, but I will message him and see if he can make a difference. So I'll just keep waffling whilst we try and get Ash. Goodness me, he's been on bloody holidays for 2 weeks, and now we can't hear him. Oh well, righto. I'm in a trade also, so I should show you guys that, I suppose. And it's right on entry if you're interested in taking it. Took this on a 4-hour bar to, or did I? No, I took it on a daily bar. Similar on a 4-hour bar though. No, I didn't. I did take it on a 4-hour bar. Yeah, that one there. All right, my entry was there. Okay, it's all coming clear to me now. All right, so what we saw here was a break below the trade line on the Aussie US dollar. And I did say, or I've been saying all week, that I thought this was a pattern that perhaps was going to be a stall in the market rather than a turnaround point. So despite the fact that we've got 3 clear refusals to go above the 68.50 mark, I still thought this, because of the monthly pivot, was an opportunity to take or to join in the party here to go long the Aussie. And bearing in mind, I've got a big target ahead of us. This one here, I see that as a potential target for the Aussie. This may not be the time, but what I saw is clear base. We've been talking about that base for ages. Last week we spoke about the fact that we hadn't quite got to where I thought the level was in 67.45, but we took off since then. And interestingly, I suppose, if you have a look at, in particular, Friday's bar, I think Friday's bar was very interesting. Wednesday, Tuesday, Monday, Friday. A lot of currency pairs suffered at the hands of the NFP. This was very much a spinning top or indecisive bar, and I thought that might have been a bit of a clue as to what was coming next. Then, of course, yesterday we got this big sell-off out of the blue. I've got no idea where that came from. I've got to be fair and absolutely honest with you. Didn't see it coming.
Sorry, buddy.
You're all right, mate. Back with us.
Sorry.
Good.
Sorry.
You go away for 10 days and you come back and you can't hear. What are you doing?
Sorry, mate. So, yes,
I'll just finish this Aussie scenario for the guys, because there is an order that I've got in the market and it's actually live right now. So if you're interested, guys, it's bang on entry, and what I'm trading is this bar here. There's a little bit more to it than that, but I thought an entry above the pivots today, given that we had a very, very nice higher low sitting here, I thought that was a pretty reasonable trade to take. So it's bang on entry at the moment if you're interested. I've entered at 0.68195. Obviously, I've been slipped about half a pip or something. My stop loss is a mere 22 pips, so underneath the reversal bar, and I'm going to take 15 pips as TP1, and I'm going to close 1/3 of the position. I'm gambling on that getting through this resistance area here and DR1. I'll give you an indication now as to what I will do if price gets above here and DR1 and hits our TP1, then comes back to hit this trend line. I'm going to actually increase my risk on this when we get back to here. So I'm going to scale into this. I think this is a reasonable trade if we actually get hold of it. And again, my target is from here. Where are we? So entry about there. Target here. About 240 odd pips, and I'm risking 22. So it's a 10 to 1 if this comes off, and that's why I'm happy to be in it, right? So it may not be the best trade I've ever seen, but it is a clear higher low, and yes, we do have some resistance to get through here, but I think if we can get through that resistance, we're at least going to here, and we should be able to at least make a profitable trade out of it at that point. So that's the Aussie. Again, entry 0.68195, stop loss is 22 pips. I'm taking first profit at 15, third off, second profit at 31, and then I won't take anything off until we hit that target, and I may scale into it. Right, mate, that's my trades. What do you got?
Cool. Well, I mean, what was the well, let me show you what I've got. I have actually got a trade on here, and I'll show you what I've got because it may well affect things that are going on with the pound. Oh, nice, mate. So you've got a nice trading profit there too.
Well, it's in profit. I wouldn't say it's a nice trade yet, but it's got the earmarks of a possibility. I like it.
Oh, cool. Oh, sorry, I was looking at the wrong thing there. So this is what I've got on right now. I'm long FTSE. We just seen the market open. Can you see my screen? You in, mate? Well, I lost Jeff. Oh, no. Yeah, let me just tell Jeff that I've lost him. That's the only problem. I just lost Jeff. Not sure why. All right, he's going to be joining us in a moment. Yeah, so I've got a long trade anyway with the FTSE 100 from yesterday, and I just couldn't get in yesterday. I was trying to get in with Jeff in the morning, but I landed at 6:30, and I actually didn't get through immigration until pretty much right on 8. So I didn't get home till 9. So I had to do a lot of this trading while I was in the air. And just preparation in the air, and then as the market kind of started in the morning yesterday, there was a little bit of movement, and then I managed to get in this long. So there was really no way of telling you guys about it, but I quite like it for a further bit of upside. So maybe it retraces back down and you get an opportunity. There has been one bounce off this line already, but this, to my mind, is a little bit pound related. So we will have a look at the pound. I know Jeff's just been talking about the breakout trade, so we'll have a look at the pound and see what how this relates to the pound. Targets on the FTSE are going to be anything between a monthly pivot and probably a trend line from the daily as well, which is kind of running through here. So there's a little trend line through there that I'd quite like to see if we can hit. It should coincide with something of this low here as well. So anything between 40 and 80 pips to the upside is really my target right now. I quite like the seasonality, the seasonal play with the FTSE right now as well. I don't think that's relevant anymore. I quite like the seasonal play with the FTSE as well. So if it can break through, and news is at least muted at best, or at worst, I should say, then I think that there's probably a seasonal play in the FTSE that takes us a bit higher. I'm keeping stops loose. I think I'm trailing up behind this one, and I'm keeping things kind of loose. I've got it down the daily pivot, but now this line has proved itself to be a level of support. Then I will start shifting this up, up against these bars instead, just to secure the profit, just in case things turn around, which they have been fairly quickly and viciously. Now, I've got to be careful because we do have the election obviously tomorrow, and anything can happen with that. If I leave the market long and there's a hung parliament, then it should continue to the upside, might even get a gap up and go. if I short sorry, if I put my stops too high up and Boris Johnson wins, then the pound is likely to strengthen fairly significantly. And with a strong pound, it will probably put some pressure on the FTSE. We can't forget that we've got the US-China trade spat still in play as well, which is right for the weekend. So we've got really 3 or 4 days that are going to make these markets quite tricky to trade, which is why I'd quite like to see if I can hit target before the end of the day. You know, I probably will close out. Now, my suggestion, if anybody wants to get into the FTSE, then my suggestion would be either let it just retrace along the trend line. Now, I've got a trend line on the hourly chart, which really kind of is MT4 time at 4 o'clock yesterday, right the way through to 10 o'clock yesterday to this morning's bar. So, you know, a dip down and a touch against here, which would coincide with this this high on the hourly. That's a good entry point. As opposed to that, then you're probably waiting for a weekly pivot and then a weekly pivot return and see if we can get through and bounce to the upside. But I think we're good to go for some upside this morning. Let's check the news and data. You're back.
Mate, I know you've been out of town, but
yes.
Is there any chance that he won't win?
Yes, there is okay. There's a bit of a possibility, which is, you know, this is now being expressed through the pound this morning.
Yes, we saw that. Well, late US session in particular, it just came up very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, looking at that on the hourly, that looks a little bit ominous for the pound, doesn't it?
It certainly does. Yeah.
Fairly good match with the RSI as well. So I think lower pound is probably in play. There was a poll last night which suggested that the chance of the Conservative majority being what they once thought it would be have diminished. So they were looking at like a 60-seat majority, and now they're looking at 28 seats. Which the problem with the 28-seat majority is that with a little bit of room for error, it kind of increases the chance of a hung parliament, because obviously 28-seat majority is only a 14-point swing. So they lose 14, Labour gain 14, and then all of a sudden we're looking at a hung parliament. So that would probably or possibly put Labour in power. There is a chance that he loses a few seats along the way, and either Labour or the SNP or even the Lib Dems or even the Green Party, you know, any of those guys take those seats off the Tories, then the chance for a Labour government, minority government, start to increase, because Labour have backed the second referendum. I think it is a Brexit election. So because Labour have backed this second referendum,
if that happens, how long would it take the pound to get the parity?
Really good question, mate. Yeah, I mean, I think that's going to be the danger, isn't it? If the Tories don't win the majority, then the pound is going to absolutely tank. There's no two ways about that. It is going to fall off a cliff. So the pound's in quite a dangerous position really right now, and we've seen this reversal pattern as well. We can see that further sellers are coming into play here, and we are holding right now this ground. But let's have a look on the see that that closing under that levels, that's going to put that under quite considerable pressure. So the pound is going to be under stress, which ultimately from where we are now, what this means is that a retracement today would probably be on the cards, only to either see the buying come straight back in tomorrow, or for that retracement to turn into something quite ugly. When we look at this on the weekly, then there's a chance that it could turn into something fairly ugly and fairly relevant when it comes to downside. So, question of how quick it gets to parity, mate. I mean, probably not in the next day or so, as the news filters through, but it'll certainly get it started. I would suggest, if we don't get that Tory smash that they've all been predicting.
Now it's going to be quite a show in the next 3 or 4 days, actually.
It really is. I mean, this is the
It's
thing, isn't it?
massive, massive end of week.
Not just it may well be the busiest 48 hours that we've sat through, and
Time, if not ever, yeah.
yeah, I mean, we're
certainly scheduled.
certainly scheduled. Yeah, so we got the any time there's election, it's big. It's a big deal. So that happens. It's meant to happen once every 4 years. So if you think that once every 4 years that's going to happen, but how often does one of those times every 4 years also run into an FOMC statement, and it also run into Christine Lagarde speaking, an ECB president speaking, and also run into a potential tariff spat between the United States and China, so
it's not just any old federal election either. There's a whole lot swinging on this one.
There really is. Yes, you're absolutely right, mate. And I suppose this also does precede what's going on the weekend. So maybe this is another reason that I don't want to get too ahead of myself with looking for FTSE upside. It's quite late in the day. FOMC's on at 7 o'clock. You see, by this time of the day, by 7 o'clock this evening, CPI is going to be quite an interesting read as well. Whether that'll put some effect on the statement later on is a little bit uncertain, but that might be an interesting number depending on how extreme it is. Let's have a look at the CPIs. Yeah, they're a bit choppy.
Interesting question, isn't it? If that was to be an extreme number, can the Fed actually ignore it? Have they already made up their mind?
Well, yeah, absolutely is. Yeah, it is. I mean, you think that they've done all their prep already. It would, I suppose, it would have to be an overly extreme. I think the extreme they probably would ignore because they like 3 months of data, and they're not going to make a statement and decide on a funds rate on one data point. But CPI's, it's quite an interesting number right now anyway because of the trade spat. Inevitably it does change the price of things. So yeah, I mean, I don't think anything will change from the back of that. But it's still the statement that we got to watch out for. What do they say? But by this point of the day, I'd really like to be either out of the market or very nearly secure by that particular point. We can see that there is on the FTSE. Yeah, on the FTSE. I mean, this is a weekly chart, and I was looking at this weekly bar today and thinking if that weekly bar provided some sort of hammer, that would probably suggest that we might start to get, that may well be the start of the Santa rally, from that particular point. But we have to remind ourselves that it's Wednesday. There's no guarantee that this FTSE is going up, and yes, there is a seasonal pattern which does suggest a rally in the FTSE at this time of year. But when we think about the kind of the micro effects of the kind of microeconomic effects of what's driving the market, then it can very easily ignore what's going on with seasonality and all of a sudden you're kind of caught on the wrong side of something just because it usually would go up here. So it's quite tumultuous. I'd suggest it's got quite a lot to get through, but I'd quite like to see it given a good, make a decent fist of getting through this weekly pivot, and that's really what I'm waiting on. Rather than getting my security and protection in the market too early, I'd like to see it get through here. And as the day draws on, if we're near sort of the low of this area or the monthly pivot, at that point I really want to be looking at the price action, seeing if it is giving me some kind of indication that there's a pause, because then I will look to manage the trade, and that could mean just cut it, or maybe hedge it, or maybe stick stops up high enough. But the issue with the stops are the gaps, and this market has not been without its gaps recently. Isn't it evidence of it here? Of only last week we saw a gap to the upside, which if you've got any stops in place, then that's going to take you out of the market at that point rather than at these highs. So you get you lose out.
What that was about?
That was
up and then went bang.
Yes, so I was in this trade, so I know exactly what it was about. It was again a China. This, I believe. Let me just double check this. Yes, so this was a Chinese number. It was I think it was a Caixin number. Actually, came out better than expected. So so the market was moving to the downside. The number came out. People thought, okay, things aren't too bad, so they start buying up again, and then they realise that you know, one swallow doesn't make a summer, and they start to sell it off. So, but these gaps, there's another one here, another gap there. So these gaps have been in existence, and the gap in itself isn't a problem. But if you've got a stop in play, then they do become an issue. So I'm a little bit reticent with stops. It's giving it a go right now, mate, to try and get through this weekly pivot. This is all I want to see. Make a fist of getting through here and see if we can get at least another 30 to 40 pips up. And as I say, you know, the entry for everybody can be beyond that point. That's not an issue. But let's see what it does, because at this particular stage, I do have the pound kind of helping me out. You know, we come back to the pound. The pound is nice and weak here to help the FTSE out. I look at gold and I see gold under a little bit of pressure. You know, when we bring out the longer term time frames with gold, gold's under a little bit of pressure here on the daily charts. It's still looking like there could well be some weakness in play. I don't see too much evidence with gold that this is yet you know, changing its momentum to the downside. I still see some potential for some further downside. The S&P, you know, near those all-time highs, it's continuing to hang on in there, which is a pretty good sign. Same with the Dow. You know, there's a little bit now of a suggestion of a diamond pattern, which could be quite negative, but that hasn't yet played out. And then we bring in things like the Santa rally and other aspects like that. And for that reason, and for those reasons, I just want a little bit more out of this before I start concerning myself with the election, because that there's no two ways about it, mate. I'm not going to be stupid enough to think that I can predict the best way to trade the market through the election. So at that point, I close up or I just put in some management.
Yeah, look, there's probably going to be fortunes made and fortunes lost over all of that, mate. But
yeah,
at the end of the day, it's speculation. There's no other way to describe it, really, is there?
Yes, exactly. And I've got, you know, I've got my doubts, and I've had them for quite some time. I've got my doubts about Boris Johnson winning this hands down. You know, it's I think maybe in some respects, ever since the referendum, it's been very, very difficult to get a feel of the mood of the country. You know, there's been a few gaffes on the way, which are inevitable. We got this new one about this kid lying on a hospital floor, and Boris Johnson being accused of potentially setting up a trade deal with the United States, which would see the United States buy quite a lot of the NHS. So the NHS going into private ownership.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's you know, there's lots of there's lots going on. There's lots of ammunition with the opposition against Boris Johnson, and for those reasons, I'm finding it a little bit kind of difficult to be hyper confident to say this is what you know, this is what is going to happen. Yes, it's likely that he wins. Whether it is likely that he wins with a working majority and the size of that majority, I don't know. The other thing to remember is that a 28 seat majority means that he is going to have to line himself with parts of his party that he will not want to line himself with, and that does kind of bring, you know, other, you know, that brings its own issues and problems. He needs a proper working majority, and a nice healthy majority, so he can genuinely get his vision through, rather than having to do you know, some backroom deals with people that he doesn't really want to do it with within his party and without.
Certainly interesting days, and that Dow chart that you were looking at, it seems like only yesterday we were talking about 20,000. No, it's not going through 20,000, surely. Where are we?
Yeah, and now look, 28,000 practically. Yeah, crazy, isn't it?
Absolutely
crazy, mate. But this is the pattern on the Dow. You know, this is what we got. We got I look at this quite a lot. So we got that, we got that, we got that, and we got that. And that is they very rarely come to fruition. We got this exactly the same on the FTSE 100 on the monthly. When these things come to fruition, it is ugly. That they are probably the most bearish pattern out there. And as I say, they very rarely well actually play out. But when they do play out, they are, as I say, they are pretty ugly because from this point on, you're looking at the measured move being inside here and taking us, depending on where it breaks, somewhere down here again. So if I mark that level off, get rid of this, get rid of those drawings and get rid of this, and bring up a longer term time frame. Actually, it doesn't, and we've just looked at a diamond pattern on an hourly what was it on the daily, sorry. Now when we look at that on the daily and we come back to the monthly, retracing down to this point here does not look like the least likely thing in the world. That looks pretty likely to me.
Not the silliest thing.
No, it's really not, is it? So that to me looks fairly likely, and that brings us down to 26,700. So that could be a 2,000 pip drop in the Dow, a 10% decrease, if you like, in the Dow, and over a short period of time. Those things tend to happen over a short period of time, and sorry, a 2,000 decrease in the Dow over a short period of time. So if when we think, God, you know what, mate, we haven't even considered the other elephant in the room, which is the impeachment. They're bringing that forward now. Yeah. That I heard the news on the impeachment yesterday, and I've been long the FTSE, and I thought I better sell this off. I put a sell order in the market, and I saw some price action happen. So that happened. I was checking out this 15-minute chart here. That was going on here. Just got the announcement about the impeachment, and then boom, so this started to come down. So I sold the FTSE, and then this morning I noticed that it kind of gone nowhere. So I closed the position with a tiny bit of profit, but I'm glad I did, because even things like the impeachment inquiry doesn't seem to be dampening the markets too significantly. But there was certainly an initial reaction which was a little concerning. But that is next week.
Really, does the market expect that he's actually going to lose this? I don't think so, and that's probably
no. I don't. I think you're right, mate. But the thing about this particular market is that it's been so plagued with uncertainty that it's that kind of thing that is keeping the reins on it. It's uncertain about who's going to be the Prime Minister in the UK, and subsequently uncertain about the outcome of Brexit. It's uncertain about whether the president will win an impeachment. Yes, they are fairly sure he will, but it creates the uncertainty. It's uncertain whether China is going to get
exactly what you're just saying now. Sorry, to interrupt. Exactly what you're just saying now. It puts me in a very bullish mood on gold. Puts me in a bullish mood on the yen. Puts me in a bullish mood on the Swissy. Because of all that uncertainty. What does uncertainty?
Oh well, I mean, it's interesting you say about the Swissy. Yes, the Swissy was, if you're looking for a currency to trade, actually let's have a look at the currency that that might be the interesting one of the week, because the Swissy, when I was looking at the COT data, it looked to me like the Swissy may well be the kind of weapon of choice for the week, and if we are going to be buying things like the Dow and the S&P and the FTSE, and maybe hedging it a little bit, then rather than hedging it with the same market, maybe buying some protection with gold, or the yen, or back to the Swissy. So the Swissy could be an interesting one. I'm just going to bring up a chart of the Swissy. Let's have a quick look at it. I'm presuming you've probably done that already.
Actually, no, mate, I haven't. But I have been taking a quiet interest in it over the past few weeks, and
okay,
I see good things for it. Yeah.
You know what? I haven't got. Oh, I tell you why. I was just looking for the Swissy versus the dollar rather than the dollar Swiss. Here we go. So this is the dollar Swiss. Jesus, already started to take a downturn, isn't it? That
Oh yeah,
looks like the price.
absolutely. It more
Uh,
so than the yen, you know. I think
I completely agree.
Swissy's the one.
Yes, I completely agree. As I say, the Swissy seems to be the one that the commercials are a bit keener on. That's a shame. There was a pretty nice signal actually. Looks like. Yeah, it was actually a few days ago. Let me just double check this. Yeah, a couple of days ago maybe. The Swissy was looking pretty good. Retracement back into this area would probably still make it valid and relevant. Would you have
Can
a
you see that
price on that?
happening?
I mean, no, I mean, this is the that's it's not a very attractive chart to trade, is it, mate? How would you play that? What would you be waiting for with a Swissy?
You know, I've never ever placed a trade with the Swissy in the pair. Never ever.
Have you not?
No, never.
What? Not even Euro
Um,
Swiss?
no, especially not
Oh,
Euro
mate.
Swiss.
Oh, really? Wow.
My
I would have thought the
mind.
Euro Swiss would have been quite good for you because of the how rangy it is.
Yeah, until they unpeg it and away it goes.
Yeah,
2,000
yeah,
a second. You know.
yeah. That doesn't
Um,
help.
I think that's kind of steered me off it forever, basically. And that's kind of crazy because then they're going to suddenly do it again because it's done. It can't happen
Yes.
again, you know. But yeah, I don't know. I just got this funny thing against it. Maybe I should take a look at it because probably, you know, when times are like this, as you just described, it is absolute flee. You know, just go there. That's
I've
what they
been,
do.
do you know, it's funny that you have that with the Swissy because I'm like that with a CAD, and I wonder whether every trader has a
Has
currency
their
that just
go-to.
doesn't sit with them. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Maybe. Yeah.
and mine with the CAD came from a very very early experience with the CAD where I think it was the first currency that I placed a trade on, and I lost. And ever
Well,
since then, yeah.
you got a long memory, mate.
Yeah. Um,
Gee,
and
I
do you know
can't
what
remember.
the thing was? I followed all the rules, and the setup was absolutely perfect. And when I spoke to my the guy that kind of trained me to trade, he was like, yeah, it's just one of those things. And I don't
You
think I
know,
was satisfied with the answer.
no,
So
the
ever
answer
since
wasn't
then,
good. Hang on a
no,
minute.
didn't.
You mean to tell me that
Yeah,
every single
yeah.
time I've got a perfect setup, I'm going to lose? What's the problem here?
Yeah, exactly. I started thinking, well, then I convinced myself that the strategy just does not work on the Canadian dollar, which maybe it doesn't. I've never really tested it properly, but I'm wrong, mate. I'm wrong. The commercial the COT report isn't particularly healthy on the Swissy. That's interesting. Okay, and seasonally, my gosh. Seasonally, the Swissy is king. My God, it is. Maybe that's what I saw. Is the
Maybe.
seasonals on the Swiss franc because it is an absolute. It's a cracker. It's a
It's a
real
pearl, eh?
cracker. It is. It is. The signal maybe isn't there just at this time. I'm seeing the non-commercials are fairly they're fairly heavily short, I suppose. Commercial positions are slightly longer, but they haven't got to a buying frenzy yet to indicate that the Swissy might be ready to pop to the upside. So I'm with you, but just maybe not yet.
Yep. Well, like I said, I've never placed a trade on it in my life, so
Yeah.
the likelihood of me doing that in the near term is not great. Mate, I've got to shoot off pretty shortly, so maybe
Cool.
we should look at a couple of the currencies that I'm looking at. Do you think?
Let's do that. Yeah, let's do that.
All right. Look, it's not that exciting, I'd have to say. I hope I don't kill you like you killed me, but here we go.
Yeah, sorry about that.
It's all right. I get used to it. Let's start with the good ship euro, and yeah, look, this is so hard to work out the euro, and I'm saving myself for about 4 o'clock in the morning to get up and have a look at this. Why? Because it is FOMC day, and when FOMC day comes along, I normally look for a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday range, and nothing will change that. So let's have a look at that. Am I wanting to trade at the moment? No. Why? Because of that. That's just crazy price action. I said all week that, and probably even last week, I was saying until this gets back below this trade line here and the monthly pivot, you've got to be bullish this cross. But do you really want to trade it through resistance? And that's pretty much what we're seeing here. It's just bouncing in between these two trend lines and the top of the range. I don't even like the lower high here. I'm just not that impressed with what I'm seeing in terms of price action. But what I do like is that we've got a pretty clear range at the moment. If you were to put the high here above yesterday's high, if you were to put the low below Monday's high, there's your range straight away. So I don't know what this line is here. Let's get rid of it. And we'll use that as the potential entry long. Mind you guys, this has to be traded at the time of the announcement, not now. You can't set this trade. It has to be taken at the time of the announcement. So here's the high of yesterday. We would look to trade 15 pips above that level. So that is 1.1097. We'll call it 1.1012 as our entry. If I can see that would be good. 140. Terrible color. 1012. Is that right? No. 02. That's why I can't even read the bloody thing.
Hi, Ravinder, by the way. Sorry I missed that. I've only just literally got onto the message board.
1012. Okay, so there's the entry long. The entry short would be, let me find the bottom of the range to start with. Wednesday, Tuesday, Monday. So there's your Monday low right there. We would go 10 pips below that. So that's 110.51. We'll call it 110.40, shall we? So let's use this one and call it 110.40, which is about there. We'll give that a little bit of a red appearance. So at the moment, that's the trade. So break here, or that's your entry long, that's your entry short. Your stop for the short is the entry long, the stop for the long is the entry short, right? So that risk at the moment is a fairly respectable 70 pips. I quite like that. But here's the thing, if you're going to trade this, it has to be at the time of the announcement, and price cannot be anywhere outside this box that I'm just about to show you. And we're going to call it DS1, I think, today. So that's where we need price, in there. I think I've got that right. It's probably a little bit low, actually. Let's move it up a bit. There. We're getting close. Let's go to the daily pivot. 2 daily pivots. Now we're talking. Righto. We've got if price at the time of the FOMC statement is somewhere in this range, which is about 20 pips, right? 110.83 to 110.63, say. If price is in that area, then the trade is valid. If price is not in that area, then the trade is not valid at all. Why? Because I don't want price to be anywhere near our entry when the announcement comes, because we can buy into the announcement, right? And then the announcement comes and it's not as expected, and bam, you Gonski. Same the other side. So you can get some preemptive or positioning type selling or buying coming into the market just before the announcement, and you can get whipsawed the other way. That's why we have to have it in that range. So I'll just give you those limits again for those of you who are interested in trading that. 110.83 to 110.63, let's call that. If price is not in that area, then I would highly recommend that you don't trade that breakout. If it is, I would suggest that you do, but if you haven't done it before, very small risk, guys. Just it can go wrong, but the premise is this: if it does produce something unexpected, or even if it's expected, the FOMC statement can change trends, right? And that's the whole point of the exercise. If we can find the breakout, the trend can actually change on the FOMC. It's so big what the Fed says that this can just go 100 miles, and you can be a part of that if you trade this right. But you have to trade it right. As far as today's concerned, sorry, I'm taking a lot of time to go through this, but that's something that I do like to explain to you. We have got below the daily pivot here. I've got no idea of direction on euro dollar. We have got the FOMC statement coming up, so just don't do anything is my counsel here. The Aussie, as you know, we flagged this earlier. I think this is a reasonable position to take. We can possibly get 10 to 1 out of this if it goes right. If it doesn't, we want to take profit, obviously, along the way. Again, if we get back above here, if we can close up here somewhere around the TP1 mark, in particular, take TP1, then come back to test this, I think this now is a really good opportunity to load up for the second phase of this rally up to here. So that looks like a potential false break coming up. Of course, it could be an ABC short. You know, that's yet to be decided. We've got another hour and a quarter before this candle closes. But if it closes above here, I think we've got a strong chance of getting some money out of this. If it doesn't, then you might want to cover that position. Put your stop back up below the monthly pivot or something like that, because it's not a good sign if it doesn't close above this trend line. As far as now is concerned, if you want to trade the Aussie, I don't see anything. I don't see anything to trade here at all. To be fair, there's a really strong sense that if price, pardon me, can close above this line here and come back and retest it, then that would be your trade to get into on the 30-minute chart. Even it's a massive false break, but I think it's still there. EuroCAD, I've been trying to trade this since last Friday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Yep, last Friday's bar here. We traded, we've got an order short on this underneath this bar and a stop loss above it. I'm really playing two false breaks to the high side and a lower high. Now, as I've said all week, until this high is taken out, I will keep this order in place. This has gone into strong consolidation, as you can see, around about the monthly pivot area. You may even find a way to trade this on a smaller time frame. At the moment, I don't see that. All I see is a mess, but we do have potential for this to hit that trade line there and give us maybe break of trade line monthly pivot, then come back and test it. That would be an entry short for sure if you wanted to play that game, but I don't see anything to do at the moment on the 30-minute chart. It's just crazy. Euro yen finally is similar to what I just described on Euro CAD. We've had this lower high sitting in place for the longest time. This is the daily chart. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is the 8th day that this has remained, to my mind, the key signal. But price has refused to play it out. And again, we're back at the bottom of that candle. We've been here many, many times. But what now looks fearsome as far as I can see, is the fact that we've come back above this trend line, haven't retested the pivots. That's interesting for mine. So I'm a little bit lost now. Is this a lower high, or is this the opportunity to trade this long? High test, high test, high test. That's classic slingshot scenario. My problem is we haven't established anything more superior than what I just described to you. This is still a significant lower high for me this year. So I'm confused as to what price is telling me. I'm not willing to trade that long yet. What would make me willing to trade that long? Yeah, good question. Really good question. I don't know. At the moment, I've got a potential false break of the ascending channel. I've got a potential false break of the old, and it really is old now. Probably shouldn't even be there. Horizontal box, if you like. But I really need to see these pivots retested, and then I don't know what. To be fair, I'm just confused by this price action. Um, I didn't expect to see this go back this far into this range, I've got to say. But if it does now give me a higher low at the pivots, I've got to trade it long, haven't I? Yes, I do, because this is a false break of both the trend line, the ascending channel, and at that point, the bottom of that old range. So I've got to pay heed to that. And if we do get a rejection bar here, I think I'm going to have to place an order long above that, and that's euro yen, which, as going back to the previous conversation that Ash and I were having in flight to safety type scenarios, I would have no hesitation in nominating the yen prior to now, but looks like I'm going to have to bring the Swiss into that conversation at some stage. We've got an interesting scenario on Kiwi yen, which is why I've got that on the charts as well. A very clear head and shoulders sitting here for mine. And a break of that, or was it a break of that, is the question mark. Tried hard to break here, but every single time we get below there, we keep coming back. This candle's interesting. I quite like it. And I'd love it to close above today's daily pivot. This is the 4-hour candle. It's got an hour to go. If it did that, then I would love to place an order short underneath that bar right there. So I'll be looking to do that. Kiwi yen, but I really want to see the close above or on the daily pivot before I took that. I like the look of this, and if I can just get what I'm asking for, I'm happy to trade it short. I think that's about. Oh no, there was one more Aussie CAD. Pardon me. Aussie CAD has been confusing me all the week because it's been in no man's land. But funnily enough, I guess, if you follow this, it's doing incredible things. This massive rally from top to the bottom of the range in the shortest period of time, and then it wiped out, just incredibly wiped out so quickly. The problem I've got now is it didn't put in another attempt to get to the top, but it put in two lower highs. And now have we got a higher low? I'd really like to see a retest now of the monthly pivot, and I think that's a good opportunity to go long. Maybe we've even missed it. Maybe this candle here was the opportunity to go long on Aussie CAD. We shall see how that pans out, but that's exactly what I'm looking at. I'd like to see a retest here now of both the daily and the monthly pivot, and I think that's a good opportunity to go long here on Aussie CAD. But we're still at risk on Aussie US dollar, so maybe you need to think about that if you are thinking about trading it. Mate, that is me, done and
Great.
dusted. Lots of things I'm looking at, as you can tell.
Yeah.
And hopefully that Aussie keeps going for us.
Yeah, the Aussie. Oh gosh, yeah, we were talking about the Aussie, weren't we?
Yeah, look, I've been talking about the Aussie for a little bit, and probably I've been waiting for exactly what we're getting at the moment.
Cool.
Daily chart.
Oh, I'm really glad you got into that one.
Well, yeah, look, if it plays out the way I think it can, then as I said, there's a 10 to 1 available here, and there's my target. Has been for a while. This may not be it, but it does look like a significant higher low to me. And
yeah,
if we can stay in the right, if we've got to stop in the right place, and that's going to be the key to this. If it goes, if we we've got to stop in the right place, we've got a good chance.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, no, I've liked the Aussie for a little while. I think you are looking at seems to be a lot of potential opportunities for you, and I think I'm going to have a lot of work on for the next 48 hours as well. I think this market is going to be fairly choppy, and it's going to take a little bit of navigating to go. I'm just thinking,
as much as I'm keen to get long the pound, I've just retired from the pound until this is over.
Yeah,
I can't justify the risk.
Yeah, I completely appreciate that, mate. I think this is going to be. I mean, the market is showing pretty high volatility at the minute, and I think it's one of those that if we can trade it correctly, there's some real money to be made.
Yeah, look, if you're on the right side of it, you're going to have a party. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's shut it down, mate, and we'll be back in tomorrow, same trade time, same channel. The voting will be open, but we won't get the election result until Friday, which we will discuss on Monday, I guess.
Any polls left, mate? Before that?
I don't think so. Well, we have the kind of one that literally just precedes the result, but by not very much. So I might have one more for you. Yeah, just the exit polls. Yeah. I might have something for you tomorrow, but it's unlikely. I think we've probably seen the last. But you never know. I'm not completely up to date just yet on all things news with the election. So if there's anything more to report, I will report it. And I'm sure 24 hours is a long time in politics, so things can happen and probably will.
All right. The pound hasn't been triggered yet, so that's interesting of its own accord. We shall see. Mate, have a great rest of Hump Day, and I will catch up with you tomorrow and everyone else. Thank you for being part of Learn to Trade live and free. Hope you got something out of it. We'll see you again tomorrow.
Great stuff. See you tomorrow, guys. See you tomorrow, buddy.
Bye, mate.